Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible fine. Uh, so we are starting today now the first lecture of the Public Administration Foundation 2021. Right. So I hope, first of all, welcome to all of you. Obviously, you might have gone through a rigorous analysis and understanding of the domain of public administration or UPSC in general to arrive at a particular decision that public administration is going to be your, the important means to achieve the goals of civil services. Right. So it is quite obvious that it takes a lot of effort, commitment, and willpower, obviously, first to choose uh, the goal, which is called civil services. Fine, even though I believe that yes, in countries like India and many developing countries, I think getting into administration and the government system is more of a national hobby. Okay, like in UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, and so many other states of this country, it's like a national hobby. People have to give civil services, right? So they do IIT, they do engineering, they do medical, they do BCom, whatever they do. I know there are a lot of people from various walks of life here attending the class. So they have to prepare for civil services. Now, there are two aspects to this. One is something good, no doubt, that the civil services preparation gives you not only information and knowledge so that you become a good citizen of this country, no doubt. You must have the knowledge of your rights, the laws, and so many other things what is happening in the society. But at the same time, it gives you, you can say, a very deep understanding of how the society in which you are existing, how the society is evolving over a period of time. And it helps you build your own opinions, maybe constructive opinions regarding the things that affect you, your neighborhood, your family, your community, and probably your state and nation as a whole. So it has definitely a big influence on you, right? Though the negative aspect would be that, okay, yes, a large amount of or large number of youth, right, who could be very productive in various other fields, they also tend to get into civil services. So when we think of demographic dividend, as the logic says, reaping the benefits of human resource, the qualified, intelligent human resource in this country, the civil services exam probably does not do that good. Right? So there are a lot of recommendations on that, right? And so I would assume that you have obviously done your homework and you have thought of why you are appearing for this examination and why you have chosen a particular discipline, right? Or at least an optional, if we say. Though I would refrain from saying it is optional, because it is mandatory, it is not optional. Right, so today we will be talking about the core ideas and beliefs of public administration. Right. If we have gone through the syllabus, let us talk briefly about the syllabus. Now, administration is something that we see happening every day in our lives. Administration is something that we do unknowingly, knowingly, many times. And administration is something that is the backbone of the evolution of any society, any family, any community, any neighborhood. Right. So people have raised number of doubts, they have asked number of questions time and again, that why public administration and why public administration should be taken. And there are a lot of myths regarding public administration, first of all. So we'll try to dispel all of that today, because today is your basic introduction class. So I'll not tax you much with the conceptual and intellectual concepts or jargons of public administration. Right. So today let us very briefly talk about this idea. So public administration has been a very popular subject. It is still very popular, no doubt. And if you go by like whatever the market says, whatever the commercial aspect says, that is a totally different thing. But if you go by the data and the statistics of the UPSC itself, fine, so you'll find that the success ratio of the public administration is not less than, in fact, more than the other options, barring few. which are very technical in nature, right? And most of the students will not go for those options, right? Another reason for the popularity of public administration has been its dynamic nature, right? Dynamic nature, when I say, obviously many options are dynamic, I won't deny that. In fact, UPSC itself is becoming dynamic since 2012. You'll find the question paper of most of the options, most of the subjects is, becoming more and more advanced, conceptually very, you can say, out of the syllabus, as students use the phrase, right? But public administration, why it is so popular, why it is so, commonsensical in nature, is because it is practical. This is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. This is what probably will attract you or has attracted you for your career. When you say, I want to change the lives of people, I want to transform the society, I want to serve justice, I want to protect the weak, I want to do this, I want to do that. Okay, when you say, I want to do this, that doing is the administration, nothing else. Why? But it is quite logical that doing anything requires a skill and understanding and knowledge. So effectively, public administration as a subject is what you're going to do for the rest of your career, first of all. Secondly, its popularity is also based on what we say, like we said, it is dynamic, it is practical, it is also based on the ease of understanding. Now, if I tell you that you have to remember 1000 dates and you will qualify UPSC. But it is mandatory to remember all 1000 dates. Let us see. Or 1000 historical personalities you have to remember. 1000 theorists you have to remember, and then you can qualify. Right? Now that, what is that? It defines the syllabus. It makes the thing simple. You might feel that, okay, yes, it is easy for me to, memorize them. But when you start doing it, you will realize that how difficult it is to amass information without understanding things. How difficult it is to statically acquire the information and preserve it in a particular order, in a chronology. Because your brain is a very fertile area. It is not just a memory storehouse. So when you have to write things in a subjective manner, when you have to put subjective expressions on paper, obviously you require more of creative thinking. You require more of you, right? Not just some information fed through a pipe or through a spoon. That is not what you want. So public administration's beauty lies here. It is conceptual, fine. It is practical. It is pragmatic subject. It is what you do, what you think, what you see every day in your lives, what you read in the newspapers. And if you are able to, aggregate all this information and knowledge in a defined theoretical framework, that is what public administration is. Fine. So day in and day out, its aspirants have increased, number of aspirants have increased. People like us who are technocrats and engineers and people from commerce background, people from medical profession, people MBAs, people who have background in other social sciences also, they offer public administration. So first, this myth should be eliminated. Fine. As far as scoring is concerned, I have, and to prove this, been almost 7 years now of experience, and if you accumulated the 15 years of experience of my own preparation and how I started scoring marks and probably scored one of the highest marks in public administration over the time. So if you say cumulative experience of 15 years that we have, I have seen a lot of students, right, coming from a very humble academic background, but they had the urge to understand things rationally, logically, and they went on to score 300 plus, 315, 312 marks. People from mathematics background scored very high in PubMed. Engineers scoring very high in PubMed. Right. There was a student, BBA, who scored very high in public administration. So I've seen people from diverse backgrounds coming into public administration scoring very high marks. So PubMed also has this. It has this beauty. It has this utility that, or you can say the strength that it eliminates any kind of baggage, academic baggage that you're carrying. You may be a PhD, you may be anybody. It doesn't matter. It gives you a level playing field. So BA honors, or an MBA, or a BTech, or an MTech, or a PhD, or a research scholar, or for that matter, anybody coming from social sciences background, pure sciences background, everybody will have the same equal footing to compete. So kindly avoid these notions. These are nothing but gossips. Fine. These are the whale of excuses created by many of the babas, like who have given 4 or 5 attempts and still they are wondering why they have not qualified prelims, or certain coaching institutions or certain commercial organizations who believe that okay, a specific optional is going to give a specific number marks. This is not correct. Fine. Any optional you choose will give you marks. PubEd has an advantage because it is conceptual, it is dynamic, it is day to day, it is commonsensical compared to other options. Fine. Secondly, public administration, okay, it helps you imbibe certain things which contributes to every aspect of your profession, whether it is prelims, whether it is mains, whether it is interview. Your personality that is tested in the interview of decision making, right, is actually honed by the study of public administration. The more you study the conceptually, you study it, fine, your personality gets honed. You become more adept in making decisions, in thinking that what can be good decisions, and that is what an administrator has to do throughout his life, making decisions, right, and obviously making good decisions. So here it has a lot of advantage. Plus, you can say an added advantage of PubEd gives you content benefit in terms of content and concept for paper 2 GS, for paper 3 certain aspects, for paper 4 ethics and governance. Even your essay writing, you might see that many years you see that directly a phrase has been asked from the public administration itself. Question, an essay on public policy paralysis, right, or an essay on public policy. So you can see that okay, it has cumulative effects on other areas also. So your ethics paper out and out can be understood. I would not say it is like directly import of PubEd, but it can be understood out and out through this, right? So let us dispel all these myths. Let us move ahead out of all these gossips. Let us, crush all these excuses that exist. Yes, हो रहा है, वैसा हो रहा है, वैसा कुछ नहीं हो रहा है, ठीक है, and कुछ नहीं होगा. So and probably one of the reasons that why we have a very strong foundation of this discipline in our so-called prodigy, the institution. You might be knowing that I was obviously associated with an institution which obviously a part of that was built by me also. But the thing is that yes, the creative liberty that is needed to do certain things, okay, they require maybe going solo at times, and this is what we are doing. So our experience, our cumulative effort, our cumulative existence in this market, fine, is a proof enough that this subject or the way we are going to deal with this subject, fine, it leaves no room for any excuses, it leaves no room for any laxity, and you be assured, okay, that you can very easily score the marks that you desire, right? So it is going to be an instrumental aspect, the most important instrumental factor in your success, right? So let us now come to the content part now. Now let us get into the public administration, the groove of PubEd. So people say PubEd is elitist subject, and so you might feel little privileged today. I feel privileged teaching young minds every year, every batch. Okay, and I'm really happy and quite overwhelmed with the response we are getting. It's been a short time for Prodigy, but still students have such faith, and that bestows us with a lot of moral responsibility. In fact, a lot of intellectual responsibility that will cater to you and probably cater to the best of our ability and even beyond that, right? So if you walk few steps, we will be running for you. That is very sure, right? So kindly be confident, be alert, be aware, right, of what you're reading, why you're reading, and where can you see this happening in the society. The moment you develop this orientation, you can score very well, in fact, in any option, and in the PubEd obviously more so because it is more practical in nature, right? So let us now get into the idea of administration. Now see, you might have read this syllabus. We'll talk about this syllabus. We'll take these 2-3 days more of a relaxed pace of teaching, where your syllabus, your various facets of administration, and many things will be visible, right? So just now I was talking about that administration is visible to you. This is what you also do. This is what is done in an organized form also, right? And every day we experience some form of the administration, okay, whether good or bad in our lives. Now, people have tried to define administration when you see the subject, the syllabus of public administration in UPSC. So let us say this is our class 1. So when you see the syllabus of UPSC, very briefly I'll tell you, then we'll get into the details of the syllabus over the time, but today you just have more a broader perspective of the administration. When you see, you have obviously paper 1 and paper 2, right? This comprises of 12 units. This comprises of 14. Now one simple method would be that we divide all these units and we treat them separately, one by one, right? Which can be considered as a detailed understanding of the syllabus. But it is only the detailed understanding of what is given and not of what is hidden. So there is a very important aspect to understand. One is the manifest syllabus. One is the latent syllabus. Not the hidden syllabus that people say, hidden syllabus that people say, right? So hidden is totally different. This is the latent aspect of the syllabus. The latent syllabus means that there are a number of things which this particular syllabus, this particular unit, this particular text or concept wants to convey, but it is not visible in your syllabus, right? And you will find a lot of questions here in paper 1 coming from this part rather than this part. And this makes somewhere the questions unpredictable, and people say that, okay, it is tough, right? It is so complicated. I am not able to understand the question. Why? Because you have completed the syllabus, fine, but you have not understood what is latent in its place. That is a very basic reason of why most of the students fail to understand the question. So if they understand the question, if they are able to, understand this aspect, they can write it very well. And they can get as good marks as mathematics. That is what I always say. Okay. So Rishita got 318-20, I think, the 18th ranker. Dipankar got 301 or 309, I think. Okay. So there are so many students who scored. Okay. Rizwan, he also got somewhere 299. Then a lot of people, Ashish Pal, one of the first students that I taught, he was also one of the toppers of PubMed that year, 2013. Right? So he also scored good marks considering that time, right? So, and obviously, the people who have scored well, they have actually understood this aspect also, right? Paper 2 also has certain aspects, fine, which are what you say theoretical, which we generally avoid. We don't study them. We don't try to understand that in that manner. And one aspect is what? When you say the practical administration that is happening. So you read this part, you generally don't read this part, right? But when you think of various aspects, various issues in paper 2 also, right? When you have to do analysis, when you have to give some substantive argument related to something, right? You need to use this also. This will establish a link between this and this, right? Even though we may not overdo this part here, but there is a need for establishing a link between them. Fine. Now, if we go with this logic, first, this should be very clear to you. It's a very simple aspect that what is visible and what is not visible. Fine. What is given, we are understanding it, but what is the theory or the conceptual framework behind it, that we are not understanding. So, we are simply mugging up the articles, the constitution, the polity, the federal relations, nature of federal relations, finance commission, planning commission. We are doing all this, fine, but we are not able to understand conceptually the logic behind this. Right? If you are able to do this justice to the paper in this manner, right, we are going to get huge amount of marks. The only drawback is the students don't do this. They don't make this effort. Okay, neither the teachers. Why to make that effort? If the syllabus can be finished in 3.5 months, right? And again, a new batch can be formed. Then why to go for 4.5 months of teaching? But we don't believe in that. So almost our course extends to that time. Right? The basic idea is that you don't need to study anywhere else, or you don't need to study anything else once you study here. Right. So this is one simple idea that I wanted to give. So you see, paper one, that is the actual public administration thing. So when you see paper one, you will understand that paper one provides you with the theories considered to be a very dreaded part, the principles, right, and the concepts of the subject that we call as public administration. Now, because these theories, principles, and concepts, most of them have originated now in the context of US or the Western society. Quite logical. Why? The printing press was developed there, Gutenberg. So it was easy for them to disseminate their knowledge, it was easy for them to store the knowledge, it was easy for them to protect the knowledge that they created. Even though non-Western countries have also contributed to this idea, but we generally don't take that as the starting point of the emergence of discipline, right? So most of your social sciences have origin in the Western countries, right? So let us see. So you have theories, principles, concepts originating or dominating the subject. So you can say the basic skeleton of the subject, what it is, right? What is the scope of its study? What are its elements that we'll study? Right? How to even understand what is the domain of the subject? Okay, what are the tools by which we can understand it? Everything dominated by the Western societies, right? So here you'll see that paper one is ideologically prejudiced, right? I'm using a word, though it may be a harsh word, but it is correct. It is ideologically prejudiced, okay, in terms of the Western biasness. So the entire Western cultural influence is visible in your paper one, and it is divided into several parts, right? So we'll talk about that today. So it is divided into now several parts, right? So when you see paper one, your unit 1, right? Unit 2, unit 3, right? 6, 7, 8. Right? These become the sine qua non, the most important units to be studied. In fact, you'll find most of the paper coming from these 6 units, right? Though there are obviously interlinked questions coming from all the other areas, but you see, if we complete this 6 units, right, more than 60% of paper 1 can be dealt with, right? What about the rest 6 units? So these rest 6 units will give us somewhere around 40% questions, and many of these questions will be dependent upon the knowledge coming from these units. Now this simplifies the logic that if we are studying paper 1, focusing on these 6 units, interlinking them in such a manner that we don't miss out on these questions also. So see, half the effort, twice the benefit. But we don't do this paper 1. What we do? We start studying unit by unit. This unit, this unit. Let's say, for example, I'll give you a very common sense example. There's a neurosurgeon who is studying our nervous system. Okay, then there is a gastroenterologist studying our gut, the digestive system. Then there's an ENT specialist. They do their own task. Right? They do their own task. But if you have a metabolic disorder, let's say diabetes, any metabolic disorder, then what happens? Okay, all of them are needed to review the situation. So body, when you think of the human body, the physiology, it works as a whole, as one. Right? Even though for specialization's sake, we are differentiating between the head, the nervous system, the digestive system, the respiratory system, the ENT system, whatever we say. Right? But it is only for the sake of specialization, so that we can have a micro level knowledge in that area. But if you have to understand the human body and the physiology as one entity, you need all of them to contribute. Right? And that is the idea of interlinking all of that. So if you don't interlink them, yes, we may specialize in these domains, but if we don't interlink them, we do not get the knowledge of the whole, the totality. We know a piecemeal information, and that is not going to give us marks. That is going to give us a placebo effect that I know the syllabus, I have read the syllabus, I know everything, oh, I have completed it. But the moment question comes, you're gone. Fine. So the paper 1 is the very important aspect. It is your conceptual foundation, and you can understand that as it is ideologically prejudiced and it has a Western bias, the entire or most of the origin of the administrative knowledge is coming from here. And this also poses a lot of challenge that shall we read the Indian authors? Do we have any Indian book which can actually give us this perspective? So I would try to convey this idea here, that when you are trying to know a theory or a principle or some information and knowledge related to a particular subject, and the origin of that subject is a particular culture, then somewhere you have to, you have to get into that skin of that culture. Somewhere you have to empathize with that culture. Somewhere you have to understand. So you cannot simply say or pass a judgment on democracy unless you have been a citizen in a democracy. Right? So you cannot pass a judgment on communism or dictatorship, okay, just because you have a theory which proves that dictatorship is bad, unless you are part of that particular system. So this gives us a very important opportunity that when we are learning this unit, while we have to enter into the mindset of the American society, the American citizen, we have to become that way. This American scholar, what they think, why they think that way. For example, when you read, let's say, Wilson, the father of public administration, so-called, find Wilson's vision of that's unit 1 of your syllabus. So when you study Wilson and the kind of reforms he wanted, now obviously all those reforms may not have relevance to many other countries of the world. And many of other countries in the world like India who are colonized, they might not be needing that reform probably at that point of time. Right? And by the time we became independent, probably the nature of reform that we needed was very different from what he talked about. So what is his relevance to the Indian administration today? Right? But we cannot deny that whatever he talked about was in a specific context called democracy. And wherever the democracy would be, certain aspects of Wilson will always be relevant. Right. But to understand Wilson, we have to somewhere become the alter ego of the Wilson. Right? We have to clone ourselves to become Wilson and think in that manner, and then only we can appreciate or at least criticize his theory. Both. And that is the missing link in understanding the theories. Most of you try to mug up Prasad and then say, so it's so complicated language, इसको समझा दीजिए. पहले ही समझ लो. तो इसको पढ़ो, फिर रटो, and then you don't understand, and then probably then you say that okay, yes, it has confused me. Why it has confused you? Because conceptual orientation is not there. You did not get into the cultural aspect of the author and the theorist, which is a very simple task. It is the most easiest task. So put yourself in those shoes and think that way. But I know thinking is a very difficult task, no doubt. Most of you would rather leave the goal or dissociate the goal. Most of us, not you, I mean everyone, okay, then rather than exert yourself in thinking certain things. Yeah? But you see, this is the easiest task. Once your brain acquires that kind of space, your cognitive abilities, आपकी intelligence develop हो जाती है, it becomes very easy for you. But yes, it is a little tough process in the beginning, right? Which is with everyone. That is why you have chosen this exam. It is not a bank PO or a SSC exam, right? So let us say this paper 1 would have a lot of elements of Western culture, American culture, the influence of Western culture, and that is how it has been divided into various parts. Right? So it gives us the basics of the public administration, the subject and its emergence, and what were the conditions under which the subject actually emerged. So these 6 units are very fundamental and they are very important. The manner of linking them, like I gave you example of Wilson, okay, that is how we have to link them. That's a very common sense example, and if we start doing this method, because right from the first class that we'll be going through, let's say within a day or two, okay, so we can just we'll start that approach right then and there, so that, okay, the moment you read the syllabus, the moment you read the subject, the moment you read any particular aspect or topic, right, you are able to visualize it practically also in our society, not just American society, but without losing the cultural sensitivity, without losing the sensitivity in which this particular idea was developed, right? So we'll deal with this. Okay, there are a lot of references which are important for paper 1. We have talked about, given videos on references many times, many places. But I would like to give you some basic things, like when we start off, if you are attending the class, obviously, and noting down certain things, you'll have to be very sincere in doing that, and a little serious also. So when you are noting down things and you are attending the class and you are making the notes, you probably don't need anything else, to be very honest, right? That you'll realize over the time. You don't need anything else, right? Maybe after some point of time you don't need me also, once you have the notes, fine. But because you'll become, the way we want you to. That is why we have this business program. But if I would always say that you need to read some fundamental books, because the way you develop your knowledge, that is your own. Okay. So I will tell you the process, I will give you the mentorship, I will give you the information, I will give you the content, context, okay, logic, everything. Don't worry. Right? But the idea is that if some knowledge is first hand acquired by you, that remains your fundamental basic. So those basics you have to develop. Okay, kindly don't compromise on that. Okay, any good student, any student who is willing to succeed will have some fundamental knowledge of his own. Right? Obviously, your parents or me or anybody cannot come while you are administering a district to tell you or help you. Right? So let us say there are some fundamental books that we need to study. Like I always say, kindly read the IGNOU. Right? Even though if you started attending classes, I know many of you are there who are not even attending live now also. They are more happy with recorded classes, but it's okay. You will be in touch with me, right? So IGNOU BA program you can start with. You can have it at least with you. Later on you can read it. And Mohit Bhattacharya, New Horizons of Public Administration. Right? For people who are very basic and who don't understand or don't want to understand, let's say, from the scratch, both books, not much difference, but this is more comprehensive for edition that you can read. Right? But IGNOU is obviously, I would suggest IGNOU better than this. But this is for a comprehensive understanding. Right? So these basic books, plus there are a lot of other books over the time that I'll tell you, like Mohit Bhattacharya has 4 books, and some of them are very important. He has many books, but 4 books are generally recommended for UPSC. They are very important. Then Nicholas Henry, certain chapters, certain parts, pages, which will be obviously given to you. Then we have a book by the Organizational Behavioral book by Stephen Robbins, Coons and Coons, Harold Coons. That is also one book which is very good. Right. Then you have Personal Administration by Glenn Stahel. That is also a good book. Financial Administration, Tools and Techniques. These can be accessed from your general GS books also. Right. But these 2 are very fundamental books which you must have. Rest you can obviously understand from the class. For theories, people study Prasad and Prasad. It's good, but not recommended for a new student, right? Unless you have some grounding or understanding of public administration, right? Better to have SAPRU, Administrative Management, Administrative Thinkers. SAPRU, better than Prasad and Prasad. But Prasad and Prasad's preface is a very important read. It is a very interesting read, right? So there are a lot of references we'll be talking about over the time. I'll tell you what is needed. The rest you will understand once we start with the classes, that you don't probably need anything, right? But it's better the proof of the pudding is in the eating, okay, rather than saying. So let us, this is a very basic idea of the paper 1, okay, that there will be Western theories and principles which are necessary to be understood, without which You cannot do that. Fine. Now, so when we are trying to understand the domain of our subject and syllabus, how question papers are asked and likewise, fine, that is also a very important aspect. That how the nature of questions have changed. So people are quite anxious about knowing that trend kya hai. How do we know the trend, right? Now today people are coming back to the retro clothing, right, which is considered to be more modern today. So every trend comes a full circle over the time, okay, and that is going to happen because scope of creativity someday will die down, right? The experimentation will have to be stopped someday. So when you think of public health, let's say the trend, right? Let's simplify the trend. So I would like to divide into phases. Why? Let us say 2001 to 2000 is one phase. 2009 to 2013 or keep it 40 is another phase. 2014 to 2018, let us take it as another phase. This phase is a little longer because it has more or less similarity. Right? So almost 5 years, this is almost 5 years. 2019 would be obviously the 5th year. Right? Now when you see the nature of questions, okay, we are talking about paper 1 only today. So when you say paper 1, right? So when you have, in paper 1 you have a part A and a part B. Now see, part A here also was always conceptual and theoretical, right? So the uh, part A, which is generally the 4 questions, thank you, which is 4 questions part A, 4 questions part B, right? Question 1 to 4 part A, question 5 to 8 part B. Question 1 is compulsory, broken into 5 parts. Question 5 is compulsory, broken into 5 parts, 10 marks each. Okay, 5 questions. Right. So this was more conceptual and theoretical. Always, right? 2009 to 14, this not only was conceptual and theoretical, fine, but it became multidisciplinary. We'll come to that, why it happened and what is the nature of PubMed in that regard. So it became multidisciplinary here, right? When we come back to this phase, 2009 to 14, or sorry, 2014 to 18, fine, again we see the revival of the same trend. Though, the difference has occurred here. So this was a question or the phase of the question paper where the questions were focused more on concepts, the basic concepts that that are part of your topics, certain topics. But here the question was again conceptual, theoretical, the orientations similar, fine, but at the same time it became applied. I'll give you the examples, you'll understand it. Right? So let us say applied. Now let me give you an example of this. Fine. I think this is visible, right? So let us take the example of this. Let me ask you a simple question. Is public administration a practical discipline? Now it is conceptual and theoretical. Why? Because it is not asking you a fact. It is asking your opinion, your analysis, and use of the facts which were there or arguments that you want to give. So using the facts to raise arguments, to discuss things, to debate them, and then come to probably a conclusion. Right? An analysis is required for this. It's not simply asking who is Taylor, who is Simon, who is Wilson, who is Weber. Not asking that. Fine? Right. Multidisciplinary, the same question I put. Fine? Is public administration a practical discipline having roots in multiple subjects? Now see. Is public administration a practical discipline having roots in multiple subjects? Now what has been the change? What has been the change? Kindly, excuse me. What has been the change? Right? I hope it is clear to you. So, see the change. What is there? Okay. Discipline. ये यहाँ पे खत्म हो गया था. अब यहाँ से ये part भी आ गया. Fine. Is PubAd more practical compared to the other social sciences? अभी क्या हो गया? Multidisciplinary approach. Now it is no more restricted to the subject of PubAd only, but it is borrowing the knowledge from the other disciplines also, or whatever the other disciplines have the influence, right, in public administration, or that is also required. It created a lot of confusion, a lot of problems. So questions came more in multidisciplinary perspective, more in comparative perspective. Let's say, for example, compare the origin or the source of knowledge of public administration in Western and non-Western society. Right? Compare and contrast the differences, or contrast the nature of public administration and its study in Western and non-Western society. Now see, it is multidisciplinary as well as comparative. So this was the nature of question here. Now again we are coming back to the same logic somewhere here, but the difference now you'll understand. Again I am changing the same, using the same question. So let us say ये पहला phase था, ये दूसरा phase था, and now let us take the third phase, right? So now, so is public administration, same question, is public administration a practical discipline Now what will be the applied part? Let us say practical discipline, discuss in the context of the recent crisis in the health management. I am sending now 3 different phases, right? Because I am taking 2001, because that will be enough, almost 20 years span. Okay, generation, 2 generation का gap है. So 2 generations are enough to understand the trend. And then 2008 my syllabus was changed. So after that also it was quite clear. But see, this change of syllabus does not change much of the nature of questions, right? Only certain things were added to them, not removed. They were in fact restructured and now they were distributed amongst each other. It was like that, right? So from conceptual theoretical to multidisciplinary to conceptual theoretical and applied. Now this is what, this has elements of paper 2 already in paper 1. Now people say linkage कैसे होगा? मैं theory को कैसे link करूँगा? Fine, how will I understand it? They are asking you the same, they are asking themselves the question. You will yourself be oriented towards that. So when you are reading the newspaper, Okay, newspaper reading is very essential for public administration. Current affairs is a very important part of PABAT. Paper 2 as well as paper 1 both. Right. So when you are reading all this, when you are doing all this, so it is obviously logical that the applied part would be understood by you. That where you have to fit in, and this is what you have to do. The process, the exercise that we'll do throughout our classes that we are going to do. So you have to link every day what is happening, or let's say last 6 months, last 1 year, what has happened. Okay, last decade, what has happened and how it has impacted the knowledge and the content or the scope of the study of public administration. Right. Part B, I hope this is at least conceptually clear, because over the time we'll deal with this in detail. Right. Part B, now the nature of questions here more or less have remained same. They have been descriptive, theoretical, right? And it is quite easy to predict this part, even today also, right? Descriptive, theoretical, descriptive, theoretical. Right? Generally, your different theorists, different scholars, and some of their complicated aspects are asked you, right? So, if we do this very well, we can do this also very well. And this is like mathematics. Right? You can analyze well. You have a subjective understanding. You can link it properly with the facts and what is happening around you. Okay, automatically you are going to get a lot of marks from here, right? So this is like the paper 1, a kind of trend that we have talked about. Now there can be many areas that we can discuss of kya aata hai, but obviously that is more important, or that will be more credible only when you get into now the understanding of the subject. So now let us again go back to our discussion, that what is the scope? What exactly do we study, and what should we study in public administration? Now, you can answer a very basic question. You might be knowing this, that when I talk about public administration, I am talking about a subject, right? Subject, right? We'll work with the keywords. We'll work with every concept that is there in PABAT, and that is the key to scoring marks. Fine, and that is what obviously makes us very different from the others. Probably one of the reasons for our popularity is the approach that we are following. Fine, and it is a rigorous approach, no doubt. So let us say you are talking about a subject, right? PABAT subject, optional hai, padna hai. Right? Now, I use the word discipline. एक सब्जेक्ट भी है, एक डिसिप्लिन भी. This is the academic view, right? This is an academic perspective. What public administration? Academic perspective है. Subject है, book है, content है, theory है, theorist है, scholar है. This is what PABAT is, and this is what we have to study. Right? Let us say this is a book. One perspective. Let us go and say that public administration, okay, we want to join civil services, which is also called as public administration, right? Which is an administrative system. So when we say public administration, it may also mean that it is a kind of organization. Why? It is a kind of system, right? Which is working, which is visible. एक book है, fine. एक academic syllabus है that we have to study. One is the system that is working. When you see police, when you see administration, when you see revenue system, when you see collector, when you see health administration, when you see government in action anywhere, right? Even when you see that check post, even if nobody is standing, the check post is the manifestation, is the symbol of the government. वो भी एक सिस्टम का पार्ट है. So there is a specific organization which is working, right? We'll talk about what organization is over the time. Let us see. So ये एक system है जो काम कर रहा है, which is working. This is a subject that you've studied. Now let us take it further. Can I also say that there are certain functions, there are certain activities which this will perform, right? The public administration system that we think of will also perform certain functions. तभी वो public administration है. Okay, let me give you a very simple example. When I say this is a pen and this is a duster, right? So pen has a specific function, and that is why it is a pen. Duster has a specific function, and that is why it is a duster. That means what we call as duster, what that we cannot call the pen as the duster. We cannot call the duster as the pen. Even though let us keep the design same and I say it is pen and it rubs, you will not agree. No, the pen writes, not rubs or erases. Why? It is logic. The logic is that we have specified it as a particular entity, a utility doing a particular task. So when you say administration is an organization, is a system, it is why a particular type of organization or system? Because it is performing certain function. So we can also say administration is the activity also. It is a set of functions which can be studied, which is, or these functions being distinct from the other functions, right? So when we say politics, distinct है, administration अलग है, right? When we say market, economics, commerce, trade, business अलग है, administration अलग है, right? Agree? So we talk about the academic perspective, we talk about the organization, we talk about the activity. इसको हम बोलते हैं the organizational or structural view of the study of public. The organizational view or the structural view of the study of public administration, that it is an organization, it is a system, or it is a kind of structure which exists, and that is what it should look like, something like this. It should be arranged in a particular manner. Activity or function, that its functions are unique compared to other functions. Its functions are not same as the functions performed by some other organizations. Okay. So military may be administration hoga, but the moment we say civil services, the civil administration, so it will have some core functions which will be different from the military. Business, trade, economics, technology organization, different, right? So let us understand this aspect, that it also has a set of distinct functions which it performs, right? ठीक है, इतना आपको समझ में आया? So let us say this is called, what is it called now? Now this is known as the functional view. Now is it creating any complication? Nothing. It's very simple. You read in the book functionalist perspective, you get confused. And Prasad and Prasad writes things and never explains what it is. Okay, that is also a drawback. So functional view of the organization, sorry, of the public administration. Then let us take one more perspective. Now do you agree that administration of USA and administration of India is different? Why? We may have the same design. It's like a vacuum cleaner. Let us say you are using a vacuum cleaner for household cleaning. Can you use the vacuum cleaner for cleaning your garden? No. Right? आप कर सकते हो. Lawn mower की तरह can you use the vacuum cleaner? You cannot. Why? It looks more or less similar. Right? If you are using the lawn mower on the lawn, on the grass, can you use the lawn mower on the cement road that is there? Right? On the boulders, you cannot do that. Right? Why? When certain things are designed, when certain things are created, They are created with a specific purpose and they work or operate in a particular atmosphere only. Right? Understand? So certain things have the ability to operate in a particular situation only, in a particular circumstance only, and that is how they derive their design. You cannot wear a space suit here in the classroom, right? However comfortable it might be, you cannot, right? Because there is a need for a specific ambience, there is a need for a specific environment, and that is what we call as the socio-cultural context. Socio-cultural context. Are you getting it? So public administration of USA and public administration of India, in spite of having maybe more or less derived from the similar knowledge and theories, fine, will have a different visible features, will have a different visible system or structure, a design, which will be very different from each other. Why? Because they are catering to different needs. वहाँ poverty इतनी नहीं है, यहाँ poverty है, वहाँ racial conflicts है, अब तो है, fine, but यहाँ भी है. Here cultural conflicts some more, caste conflicts some more, right? We have, politics is very typical here. Okay. The economic, social and other needs, vary across the society. The awareness, the literacy, the education is very different here, very different here. So it is quite obvious that the similar kind of administration, okay, the similar kind of design may be there, but it may not perform the similar functions. Or when the functions will change here, the design will also have to be altered a little bit. Right? So you can understand this with the pen which writes on paper, the pen which writes on the whiteboard. They are different, but both are pen. Functionally, they are writing, but fundamentally, in terms of their design, their structure, the way they look, it is different. So you can understand another perspective of PubAD, okay, or the scope of the study of PubAD from this perspective, socio-cultural context, which is known as PubAD as part of social system. Right? Now, this is known as the ecological view of the subject, the socio-cultural view of the subject, the socio-cultural understanding of public administration. Now, these are four different ways of understanding the same thing that we call as public administration. One, एक subject है जो पढ़ना है, एक organization है that works, what it does, the activity, and now how it differs from society to society. Are you understanding this logic? There is a very fundamental logic to understand the public administration and the domain of study that will be. So see, administration has a academic focus, what we study. Administration looks like a particular system. Administration performs certain functions, and administration is also part of our social cultural system that exists. That means it is unique or peculiar to a particular society. Now, this was not the view initially, but this has been added recently. Recently means, let's say, 1960s and 70s onwards. Fine, as a subject, PubAD is almost 120 years old, 130 years old, not more than that. Right. So, if you have understood this logic, right, you have won half the battle. But you'll have to imbibe this idea, right? So, it is a subject, it is a kind of system, it is a set of activity, it is a kind of socio-cultural, part of socio-cultural system, right? Now, these are the four windows, you can say, through which, or four doors through which we can enter the room, right, the domain, or access the domain of public administration, right? Okay. Now, is it understandable? So, what do we study in scope of PubAD? Now, it is quite logical. Let's see, administration is a kind of organized activity that we do, is a kind of organized endeavor that we do to achieve certain things, right? Now, who decides these certain things? Okay. In a very simple way, let us understand it that there is a society. Now, what is a society? It is a group of people. Obviously, we can include animals also in that. There are human animals and animals. Fine. But we have society. Society is basically comprising of communities. Community is a closed group of people who are bound by various factors like geography, fine, culture, religion, language, food habits, customs, and etc. etc. They are also bound by social media today, right? Facebook and WhatsApp or whatever networks that we are creating, right? So, community, group of people, right? Who are close group of people who are bound by certain factors. So there must be a certain factor which would be common to them, and this will become the binding force amongst them, right? Now these communities, when they collapse together, when they come together, right? Let's say community 1, community 2, and they may be dispersed because this is the community which is close together. Now there are different communities which may be geographically separated, culturally separated. Now when they come together, right, and they develop certain ties amongst them, whether it arises out of fear, whether it arises out of a bonhomie of friendliness amongst themselves, or it arises out of some common enemy outside or something, or a sense of territorial integrity, a sense of territorial commonness, if it arises out of anything, and then the bond that is established, if it is created in such a manner that it creates a sense of permanency amongst them, right? An association of permanency in terms of association amongst them, then you would develop society. So formation of society, the word societe, okay, French, socius, Latin, okay, talks about group of people, okay, having some commonalities, bound by certain things, right? So when this society is formed, we are all part of societies, right? The society's formation, these people would be bound together, obviously not by fear for a long period of time, but obviously by certain things, a sense of completeness when they are together, right? They may be able to, compensate for each other's weaknesses. They may be able to appreciate each other's strengths. So you form a society, right? Now we are starting from ground zero here. Okay. It's not that we jump onto the definition of pabad and start teaching policy, banta, policy. That is illogical. That is not how the exam can be catered. That is not how the questions are coming today. I've just talked about the trend. And that is not how you will be probably, what you can say, a bond in public administration. So be assured of that. Once you are here, out of here, you will be the bond. But don't open coaching in front of me. It will be a competition, right? So I hope not. And all of you qualify. And we obviously have a tradition of people scoring 300 plus, a lot of students scoring 300 plus. Okay, so I hope you do that. But unless you go to the ground zero, fine, you cannot understand this one. So let us say society comes. I hope till now it is clear. Society is formed. Now society can be created only based on a common consensus. Fine. Even today in families, amongst brothers and sisters, among husband and wife, there is no consensus, but still, we theoretically believe that there is a collective conscience, right? A common consensus that emerges between various communities, which may be dispersed across geography or territory or culture, fine, and they come together to form a collective conscience, okay, which we call as the common will. The common will is not the aggregate of the will of all of them. Okay, simple logic है. I come from a particular caste, from a particular community, let's say from a particular religion. You come from different community, caste or religion, right? What binds us together may be our humanity. What binds us together may be our appreciation of a state or a nation in which we live, or a neighborhood in which we exist. Fine, but it may not have, or we may not have a complete acceptance of each other's traits or weaknesses or values or beliefs or everything. No, but we have come to a common ground. That here I am individual, here we can be collectively, we can exist together, right? So when you think of common will, it is not the will of all of them or the same will of all of them, no, but it is the common, something that comes or derives out of a consensus which has been developed, a bargain which has been done between them, right? So a bargain has been struck between them, and this bargain is enough to bind these people together. That is the common will or collective conscience. So the moment I say India is a nation, yes, the nation beats in our hearts, right? Irrespective of who we are, what we are, where we are from, right? That heart that beats together in terms of a nation, or with the notion of having a nation or being part of a nation or an identity, that can be called as common will. Collective conscience, which is visible. So every society has a collective conscience. Every society is formed. So society is obviously a product of a bargain, a compromise, a contract between people. Fine? Who come together, who are bound by certain values, beliefs and faith, and who believe that the existence of one community is positive, is constructive, is advantageous for us. Are you getting? Fine. So it is constructive, it is positive, it is advantageous for us, and that is why we can mutually coexist. Right? So this society comes. So the idea that members of a society, imagine we are hunter-gatherers, and then we settle down somewhere near the river, we do farming, then we create surplus. Surplus promotes bargain, barter and exchange, it promotes trade, and then people need to settle because they are getting economic benefits and privileges. Right? So they need to settle at a particular place. So settlement starts, habitation starts, and this is how the process continues. Right? So let us say societies are product of this. So even if you don't think of modern societies, even if you don't think of the post-French Revolution era, right? The post-Reformation or the Renaissance era, even prior to that, people living in jungles, in caves, okay, hunters, gatherers, and nomads, and whatever, and then they moved on to a settled life slowly. Okay, all of that, okay, somewhere was based on the idea of collective conscience. A group of hunters, gatherers, collective conscience, though not that developed, though not manifested in some sophisticated form, right? But they also used to plan, they also used to decide, they also used to have a common goal, and they also used to act as per the common goal, dividing functions between them. So they were also doing administration, right? So we'll come to that part, right? But right now you first understand how the scope emerges. So we have a common will, a society comes. Now obviously the modern scholars, the modern theorists have theoretically, conceptually tried to understand this idea that okay, there is a society, the society comes through a common will, a process of common will. Okay, now it is culture, language, religion, food habits, customs, more, faith, belief, whatever you talked about, of the geography, it binds people together. And these people come and they form a common will. And so there is a kind of contract between people, whether you call it bargain, whether you call it compromise, whether you call it the need of these people, these communities together, they come into a contract. When your neighbor does not shout after 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, right? And let us say there is no law, the Supreme Court is not there, and does not say that you cannot play loud music after 10 or 10:30 or 11 o'clock, right? And no law is there, but still the neighbor is conscious enough that he does not do it or they do not do it, right? What kind of unwritten, okay, convention or unwritten contract between you and him exists? Nothing. It is social. He does not want you to do something to you that he does not want you to do it to him. Right? This is also known as Aristotle's golden principle in ethics. Right? So you don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you. Right? So there is a kind of unwritten contract. Right? There is a kind of unwritten, you can say, a commitment towards each other. Right? So this contract is generally referred to by the modern scholars, the post-Renaissance theorists and scholars as social contract. Okay. Fine. We'll talk about many scholars like Rousseau, Hobbes, Paine, Augustine, Saint Simon, and likewise. So many of these scholars are basically coming with the idea. Okay, MacIver and likewise. So they come with the idea of social contract theory. Okay, social contractualist, they are also known as. Fine. They believe that society comes together through a collective conscience, and it is the collective conscience. Fine. It is the common needs. It is the sense of belongingness together which binds people, though a majority of it is unwritten. Fine. Unless you develop religious texts, and there are religious communities, religious societies which are basically bound by some very narrow factors, but there are societies like India which are bound by diverse factors, and that is why we are much more liberal, and that is why probably we have more resilience towards a lot of changes and adaptation that goes on. Right. So let us say social contract theory, it simply understand it this way, that people come together bound by certain things. These things may not be written somewhere. Right? It may not have legal sanctity, but it will have a moral sanctity. It will have a socio-cultural sanctity. Respect your elders. Socio-cultural sanctity. Fine? Don't shout in front of elders. Don't fight with your elders. You have to treat them with sincerity, gratitude, and compassion once they are old. What are these? These are no laws. Today we have law, Maintenance of Elderly Act 2007. Fine? But the logic is that in general, when we talk about society and culture, these are not laws. If somebody is ill, don't shout. If somebody is ill, take care. Right? If somebody comes to your doorstep, a guest, give him a glass of water. These are your common sense civic manners. Right? And they have more or less been universalized in the society. Wherever you go, you'll experience it. That means what? That there is an unwritten contract, and that is how the society comes into being. That is how the society forms. Right? So when the society is created now, there will be some do's and there will be some don'ts. The do's which will bound the society, the don'ts which will weaken the society. The do's which will promote conformity in the society, the don'ts which will create crises in the society. Deviant behavior, don'ts. Conformist behavior, acceptable norms, do's. Right? And that would be the basis of existence of the society. Otherwise, what will happen? The societies will disintegrate, the common will be challenged, the common will be flouted, the conventions, the norms will no more be acceptable. The society will slowly decay or disintegrate over the time. Right? Are you getting this point? So let us say now. So you have an unwritten contract, and which is based on some do's and don'ts, which may have more of moral implications, fine, rather than legal. ठीक है? अब लीगल नहीं है, कोई लॉ एनफोर्समेंट नहीं है, क्यों? सिस्टम ही नहीं है. Fine? But Indian society, go back to the Indian society, to European societies, to the Greek civilization, you find, like Indian society, you had the concept of Gramini in the Vedic period. The Gramini, the village headman. Fine? We had Sabhas and Samitis. Today's, like we have parliaments and legislatures, we have. So they had Sabhas and Samitis, they had a Gramini, the village headman, who perform magisterial functions, judicial functions, administrative functions, and sometimes financial functions also. Right. Or you go back and see the Mughal administration. So we had now like Patwari and Lekpal coming, Kanungo at that time. So there were a lot of village level officials, who used to promote or control it, but they were external, right? Now, imagine that society now has developed do's and don'ts. It is more moral than legal. Okay, certain punishments are defined. Punishments like when you say social ostracization, and you go to Rajasthan, Western UP, Haryana, you'll find जैसे भाई हुक्का पानी बंद हो गया. हुक्का पानी बंद होने का मतलब क्या है? सोशल ऑस्ट्रेसाइजेशन. जब पंचायत ने इनका जो है सोशल एग्जिस्टेंस जो है वो डिनाई कर दिया. फाइन, नो मोर इंटीग्रेटेड इनटू द कम्युनिटी. फाइन, सो सोशल ऑस्ट्रेसाइजेशन होता है, वो एक मॉरल सैंक्शन है दैट कैन बी डन. राइट. So now, but try to imagine, as the societies are bigger entities than communities and neighborhoods, it will be difficult for us to govern, or at least to run the society just purely on moral conventions, on moral guidelines. Fine? Because people may not abide. Fine? There would be no specific punishment. The punishments would be more cultural in nature. Okay, it may create distinction across communities. One community may not accept the moral sanctions of the other community, right? So it may create a lot of conflicts. So now what happens when a social contract, which is more of a moral compromise, a moral bargain between people, members of the society and community. So when this social contract is established and the consciousness develops in the society, what happens? There emerges a need. Fine? There emerges a need. Need for what? Need for formalizing this social contract. Formalizing this social contract. Formalizing means आप और friend you are doing business and you say भाई you are my partner, I am your partner, हम दोनों इसको divide कर लेंगे. Right? हो गया? Now one is the owner of the company and you have a mutual you have a verbal contract and you just continue. There is nothing specified, but yes, there is a moral constraint on both of you of following the norms. But what happens later? One does not. One renegates from one retreats from his, promise. So there is no way, there is no means by which you can actually enforce it. So that is more of a moral association, which does not work always. Right, so there arises a need because there will be deviation, there will be violence, there will be conflict, there will be errant members of the society. Fine, we will try to disintegrate the society. So now there will emerge a need. A need for what? Formalizing it. Formalizing means giving it a legal shape. Right. Somewhere you have to legalize it. Fine. So legalize it, you have to make something as a law. The law is above the community values. The law is above the community perceptions. The law is above the individual value system. It is something created as a universal framework, a universal foundation. Everybody being bound by law. Right? So formalization process starts. And for this, making the law, legalizing things, and then enforcing this particular law. What do we need? There emerges the need for a power system. Emerges the need for an authority which will be above any personal consideration, which will be above any community cultural consideration, which will be above any moral considerations, but it will be purely based on reason, logic, justice, or you can say transparency. A neutral perspective. That is what law is. Right? Though there can be a personal law and like the moment, but the logic when we use the word law, it mostly refers to the neutral framework, the neutral perspective, right, of understanding things. Right. So there is a need for a power authority system which emerges in the society so that the society can be in balance, so that the society can function the way we have decided, and it is more so in tune with all the societies of the world, not just our society. So there emerges the need for a power system, an authority system, which the society will create, fine, on its own behalf, based on its own principles, which are not personalized, which are not individual, but which are common principles. So the society would now develop a mechanism, a procedure through which it will create this power system known as the political system. This will be known as the political system, right? The political system that you call as the state. Political system called as the state. Have you understood? The state, the idea of state. So state emerges. How the state will emerge now? So there will be a formalization process, a legal process. Society would now create a state through a process of legitimization. Legitimization means it must be acceptable by all of them, and this procedure must be standardized so that it cannot be changed every day. The system must be bestowed with authority so that it can do things on behalf of the society. Right? Now this is a very common sense perspective that we are the one who are creating the system. Right? So who are we? We are actually the owners of this. We are who? We are the one who are the creators of this state. But what state will do? Because we are giving it power, are you understanding? So we are giving it power, we are giving it authority. Our authority, we are transferring it to the state, to the political system. So obviously the one who gets power needs to be controlled. Lord Acton, a famous British philosopher, academician and politician, right? So he uses the word, or he gives a very famous statement, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So power has the tendency of being corrupt, of making people corrupt. And if that power is not controlled, if that power is not accountable to someone, then most likely the power will be misused. Are you getting my point? So let us take it this way. Fine. So the power is given to the state, so the power needs to be controlled. Now what is the mechanism? So the society will form the political system, the state, and what it will do? Bestow it with power, but at the same time it will create a foundation for this, known as again a contract, which is called as the political contract. The political contract is the legal contract between the state and the society, okay, based on which the state is authorized to exercise authority and the power, but it has to be restricted under certain circumstances. It has to be based on certain rules, regulations, procedures. तो एक बहुत common form of political contract क्या है, या process of legitimization क्या है, is the constitution. But don't misinterpret कि जहाँ पे constitution नहीं है वहाँ पे contract नहीं है बिल्कुल है. Those contracts are more evolved in terms of conventions, practices. They are not written in one particular textbook, but they are written at many places. So they have judiciary which enforces this contract. Whereas in us, there is a constitution under which the judiciary also bound, under which other organs also bound. So the state itself is bound by this contract, controlled by this contract, so that it can effectively work for us. Now this is known as the political contract theory. This is known as the social contract theory. There can be other ways of also understanding the state, right? Like there is a divine theory of state, like state is the march of God on earth. Right? So I think Rousseau का statement है, but so it says, right, that people were looking to the God, then people started looking to the state, the government. So see, government becomes omnipotent, government becomes omnipresent, state basically becomes omnipotent, omnipresent, because it has all the powers, it has all the authority, it has the ability, it has been given the legitimacy by the people, the society, to work on behalf of it, exercise authority, control people, restrain people, punish them for errant behavior and all that. So state gets a lot of power. Right? So logically, this is the formation of the state, and this is the domain of the study of public administration, because administration is the exercise of authority to get things done. to achieve the things, certain goals of the society. So administration automatically becomes this part of this power system. Now, I hope till here it is clear. Now let us say, ठीक है, ज्यादा नहीं पकाऊंगा आज, थोड़ा ही बहुत पकाऊंगा. फाइन. सो धीरे धीरे पकाएंगे आपको. ठीक है, पकना तो जरूरी है, बिना पके तो होगा नहीं. जब पकोगे तभी बिरयानी बनोगे आपकी. फाइन. सो लेट अस से, आप जो है, you can think of this logic that state comes, right? Society is there, society is formed, society leads to the state. ठीक है, अब ये state क्या है? So state is the political entity, the authority system, right? And as per the standard theories of Montesquieu, or separation of powers, if you have American philosopher है, academician, Montesquieu or Montesquieu, right? He gives the idea of separation of power. Separation of power. So he visualizes the state in general as an entity, the power system, which will comprise of the three organs: the legislature, the executive, the judiciary. This is what he called parliament, legislature. This is what he called the judicial system, the court, Supreme Court, High Court, the judicial system. This is what he called as the government. So state और government में difference है. Fine. State is the symbol, is the manifestation, is the word, is the term used to describe the entire political system of a society. Government is one part of this political system, right? Which is doing certain things or which is deciding certain things to achieve in the society. So Prime Minister, Council of Minister, government. MPs, Member of Parliament, legislature है. Judges, judiciary है. They all have separated, that is the idea of separation of power. Their powers are separated, fine, and their functions are separated, both. They will do something, all related to authority, no doubt. Fine, but the idea is that one should not have the complete authority. None of them should have the complete authority. Fine, this is, the society gives the entire power to the state, and the power of the state itself is horizontally divided into three organs so that none of the organ becomes absolute. Just now we said power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So the state has power, that power also needs to be divided so that it can be controlled effectively, so that it can be monitored effectively, and so that they are not able to, monopolize power within themselves. ये इसको कंट्रोल करेगा, ये इसको कंट्रोल करेगा, ये इसको कंट्रोल करेगा, ये इसको कंट्रोल करेगा. Right? Known as the idea of checks and balances. Mostly visible in the American presidential system. But let us keep it basic here right now. We'll go into that detail over the time. So let us say state, three organs. Legislature makes laws, executive makes policies and implements it. Judges interpret the law, give judgments, give justice. Right? So there is a constitution which has been created. The constitution becomes the fundamental contract between the people, the society and the state or the political system. If there is a breach of this contract, the people can alter the constitution, the people can punish the people, the politicians, the people can, you can say, fundamentally alter the relationship between society and the political system, right? And that is what people can do. So a lot of authority or power is given to the people, the citizens, right? This is a big transformation that has happened over the time, right? So this is a very general idea of how the state comes into being, right? Though you can say this may not be, the contract may not be a very, credible system everywhere, but wherever we have a political system comprising of power and given the power to act on behalf of people, we can call it a state. But this can also be of various types, like you have autocracies, power system, fine, you have monarchies, right, and you have democracies. you have communism or communist systems. And likewise. So even the nature of state can be of different types, depending upon how the power is exercised. So in autocracies, totalitarian systems, there is a dictator, dictatorial regimes, autocrats who are having this entire power. So ये सब concept, they are just symbolic. The power is aggregated into a person, and he is basically the person himself considers to be the state. मैं ही सब कुछ हूँ. I am the all-in-one. I am the सर्वे right? I am the be all, the end all. Monarchy, where there is a person with a group of people, fine, who can act or who acts as the repository of authority, and the power generally gets transmitted from one generation to another generation. But democracy is probably the most desirable form of state or the political system, fine, in which we do not have elements of exploitation, we do not have elements of discretion, we do not have elements of misuse of authority, we do not have elements of monopolization of power, where everyone is allowed the opportunity to be included in this process. Though it may also have two forms like representative and the direct democracy. Both. We'll talk about it over the time. Don't worry. So right now you can understand this way that we may have also variety of forms of state, fine, in which the power will be exercised in different manner. It depends upon the nature of relationship between the people, that is the society and the state. The communist state, yes, where it is assumed that the power belongs to the people themselves and they are the ones who are exercising, but through a communist government. Now that is more complicated process, where we can understand that it is considered the group of the people are themselves governing themselves, right? Whereas here we need to choose a representative for governing ourselves. So there are different ways, means all of them may not reflect this. Okay, they may have these organs but may not reflect the spirit of what we are talking about or what Montesquieu was talking about. It is more visible in the democracy. So in our scope of the study of administration, the state, the political system, the society, the citizens, without which we cannot study the public, right? Here in our conception, it is obvious that we are more concerned with the democracy. The context of the study of public administration, of our syllabus, of our subject, of our examination is more related to the democracy, whether direct or representative, or direct or indirect, it doesn't matter. Fine. Now, so let us say that we have a state. Montesquieu talks about separation of power. Fine, we have legislature, executive, judiciary, three organs, right? There is a separation of power. They cannot monopolize the authority. They cannot monopolize control. Okay. So this executive is basically referred to as the government. Fine. Government is a system which is the action part, which does things. They make it, they approve it, fine. They evaluate it for its correctness or constitutional perspective, whether it is right or wrong, should it be acceptable or not. It protects the public interest, protects the constitution and likewise. So government now is a political system which is working to achieve the goals. अभी हमने state बनाया क्यों? Obviously it has certain goals. So most of the goals of the society will be achieved by them, okay, through the authority which is given to them. So they will use the authority, decide things, improvise, be creative, and then try to achieve it. But that part, okay, of achieving it, making it, deciding it is done by the executive, which is called as government. Now government cannot do it alone. So what it does? The government creates a system, again a smaller system under it, fine. Smaller in the sense in terms of authority, but in terms of reach, in terms of scope, it is a very big system which we call as administration, fine, or which we can call as public administration system, fine, because public here would mean the government, public here would mean the common. We'll talk about that idea of public in detail, fine. There was a question in 2015 related to public interest. Fine, public interest cannot be a rational criteria. That public interest word comes from the discussion of this word public itself. Public goods and services. A lot of questions have been asked on them. Fine. So let us say we have this idea that there is an administration, now a government, a system created under the government which will now work to achieve what they have decided. So basically which system executes everything is the administration. And here comes the role of administration. It is much lower in terms of hierarchy, right? But it is more important in terms of function. Why? Because the more lower it goes, the more closer it is to citizens. Right? The concept of citizen being very important. Like when we think of monarchy, the traditional society and the system, how they were governed. So in the traditional systems or monarchies, you will see that there was a monarch. In monarchy, you will see that, let me write it this way, more easy to see. So we write, there is a monarchy, so there is a king who is everything, who decides everything. We call this phrase as the Rex Lex. Rex is the king. The Latin phrase. So Rex is the king. The king, Lex is the law. So here the king is law. But when we make a transition from monarchy to democracy, right? When we make a transition from monarchy to democracy, here there is no one person who governs it. Democracy is basically public participation. Democracy is inclusion of people. Right? Democracy is more collective system. So here the king is not the law, but the law is the king. Law is the king. So king is law to law is the king. You see the difference? Kindly ponder over this difference. Right? So there was a question in 2007-8, 7 names related to this. Right? That public interest visualizes, right, the idea of transformation from the king is law to law is the king. Okay. Or there was another question in the same logic, that democracy is based on the principle of law being the king rather than king being the law, discussed in the context of the nature of public administration. So today our scope or nature of public administration is what? The study of democracy. Right? The study of this transition. The study of the change of people from subjects, like we have subjects in a monarchy, from subjects to the citizens in a democracy. This is a very important change from subjects to citizens. People, the subjects are dependents with no rights. They may have duties imposed on them, but they don't have rights. Citizens, they have rights. They may have duties, but they have rights. The fundamental character is the rights. They are politically conscious beings. They are active beings. They have authority. They can act against the government. The government cannot suppress or exploit them, but here they are subject to exploitation. So see, when you change from a subject, you, XYZ, a person, from a subject to a citizen, what does it indicate? That there is a change in the political formation, political structure, political order. There is a change in the relationship between the people and the state. People and the state. Now this is a more evolutionary aspect. This is a more liberal. Okay, this is a more fundamentally freer aspect, a freedom aspect compared to what you are here. So the more liberal you become, the more rights emerge. Though the importance of the government and the system still remains, right? But we are not talking about the traditional government system, though we'll study that part also. We are talking about the modern government systems, the post-Renaissance, post-Reformation, the post-French Revolution systems, the Magna Carta 1215 AD, okay, which talks about the rights of people, or the formation of American Constitution, right? Philadelphia Convention, where the Bill of Rights was presented and the basis, the grounding of the fundamental rights was established, right? Or human rights was established. we are talking about that public administration or that study of public administration rather than a very narrow interpretation of studying administration in terms of certain definitions of certain scholars, okay, which will obviously be part of over the time a sub part of what we are studying. Fine, but don't restrict your study to that narrowness. Right? So we'll be talking about. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. So today I'm leaving a little early because I don't want you to run away and then listen to the recorded classes कि भाई live में अभी बहुत सारे बच्चे जो हैं अभी दिख रहा है मुझे कि कम है, ठीक है, मतलब they are admitted but they are less in terms of because they might see at ease, they want to lie down and listen to the lecture, fine, but try to understand that you have to come out of your comfort zone and then only you can achieve this goal. Once you achieve it, you have comfort zone, ठीक है. I'll tell you a big story, a good story about an IAS officer couple, right, who was caught with 300 crore rupees. So you have a lot of opportunities in civil services, fine. So this may not be a bed of roses right now. Go for that today. Work hard, fine. Think of it in terms of the larger goals that you can have. You can become the chief minister, the governor, the lieutenant governor. Kiran Bedi ko dekho. What's our logo dekho? Fine. Jagmohan and all those. There's so many examples. So you have a big career ahead of you. You have a very extraordinary future, and you can be rest assured with us. When nobody can compete with us in terms of our teaching, nobody can compete with you in terms of your knowledge, right? So have faith in us, okay? And we are very thankful and overwhelmed by the response of the students. Okay, this was one of my ambitions behind creating Prodigy, so that we can, have a master stroke, we can have a master class regarding what we are doing. Okay, rather than commercially squeezing out the benefit and squeezing in the time for the students, that cannot be done, right? So we come with a purpose, and I hope together we can achieve that purpose. Thank you so much for today's session. I hope you like it, and we'll meet tomorrow. All the best to you.